She went on a simple date, and the billionaire cleared his schedule just to follow her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The restaurant buzzed with low conversation, the soft clink of silverware against porcelain blending with the warm glow of golden lights. Every table seemed to host someone confident, stylish, like they belonged there. But at the entrance, a young woman stood frozen, clutching her phone as if it were her lifeline. Her name was Lily Evans. Her dress was second-hand, the seam at the hem slightly uneven. She had saved for weeks just to afford this one night a blind date her best friend insisted she shouldn't miss. Taking a deep breath, she whispered to herself, "Table 7, table 7." Her pulse quickened as she scanned the room, and then she saw him, a man sitting alone, wearing a crisp white shirt under a charcoal suit, eyes focused on his phone. That must be him, she thought, trying to summon courage. She walked over, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. "Hi, you must be Aaron? I'm Lily," she said, her voice a blend of nerves and hope. The man looked up, slightly startled. His name wasn't Aaron. It was Ethan Ward, a man whose face occasionally appeared on business magazines, though she wouldn't have recognized him. He had come here to meet a potential investor, but as he studied the woman before him, sincere eyes, trembling smile, he hesitated. Something in her innocence disarmed him. "Right," he said slowly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Nice to meet you, Lily." Relief flooded her expression. "I was so scared I'd get stood up," she laughed, sitting down, fumbling with the napkin. Ethan watched her with quiet amusement. She talked quickly, filling the silence with stories about her job at a small coffee shop, her love for sketching, and her dream of one day owning her own place, a cozy cafe where people could read and feel safe. "It sounds silly, I know," she added, blushing. "Not silly at all," he said, his tone softer than he expected. "It's honest." When she asked about his work, he hesitated for a moment before answering, "I'm in tech." "Oh wow, like apps and coding and stuff? I can barely fix my Wi-Fi," she joked, and he chuckled, surprised at how natural it felt to laugh with someone he'd just met. For the first time in months, he wasn't being assessed for his money, his influence, or his name. She didn't know who he was, and somehow that made him want to stay. Their dinner stretched longer than either expected. She spoke with her hands, her enthusiasm contagious, and when she laughed, he found himself wanting to hear it again. The waiter came by twice to remind them the kitchen was closing. "Guess we lost track of time," she said, embarrassed. "Best kind of evening," he replied. As they walked out, a gentle breeze swept through the street, carrying the faint smell of rain. "I'm glad I came tonight," Lily said shyly. "Me too," Ethan replied. But when she waved goodbye and disappeared into the night, he stood still, watching her go. His next meeting buzzed on his phone, a board call with investors overseas. He stared at it for a moment, then locked the screen. For reasons he couldn't explain, he cleared his entire schedule the next morning. Somewhere between her nervous laughter and her dream of a tiny cafe, she had reminded him of something he hadn't felt in years, what it meant to be real. The next morning, the city woke to the hum of traffic and the smell of fresh coffee drifting from corner cafes. Ethan Ward sat by the window of his penthouse, the skyline stretching endlessly before him, but his thoughts were far away. He had spent the night replaying every second of that accidental dinner with Lily Evans, the way she smiled without trying, how she looked directly at him instead of through him, like everyone else did. It had been years since a conversation felt so human. When his assistant arrived to review his packed schedule, he did something completely out of character. "Cancel everything today," he said. "I just need a few hours." The assistant blinked in disbelief. "Sir, you have a board meeting with—" "Reschedule it." Ethan cut in, his tone calm but final. Later that morning, he found himself standing across the street from the small coffee shop Lily had mentioned the night before. The sign above the door was hand-painted, the window decorated with mismatched plants. Inside, Lily moved behind the counter, her hair tied loosely, her apron dusted with coffee grounds. She was laughing with a customer, completely unaware of the man watching her from outside. He hesitated. What was he even doing here? Billionaires did not chase strangers from mistaken dates. And yet, here he was. He took a deep breath, pushed the door open, and the bell chimed softly. Lily looked up, surprised. "Ethan?" she said, blinking. "I mean, Aaron," she corrected awkwardly, remembering that was the name she had used. He smiled. "Ethan is fine. What are you doing here?" "I figured I owed you a proper coffee, one that does not cost a fortune." Her laughter broke the tension. "Well, lucky for you, we serve the best in town." As she made his drink, they slipped back into the same easy rhythm from the night before. He asked about her sketches, and she showed him a few pages from her notebook doodles of coffee cups, sleepy customers, and one corner titled My Dream Cafe. Her handwriting was messy but full of hope. "This one," she said, tapping a drawing of a small shop with fairy lights around the windows, "is what I want someday, a place that feels like home." He studied the page quietly, memorizing every detail. "You will have it one day," he said softly. She smiled, not realizing how much he meant it. Over the next few days, Ethan kept finding reasons to stop by. Sometimes he brought his laptop, pretending to work. Sometimes he just sat quietly watching her manage customers with grace and humor. The staff began to notice. "Your regulars here again," her coworker teased. Lily blushed, but tried to play it off. "He just likes our coffee." But deep down, she felt something stirring, a warmth she had not let herself feel in a long time. One afternoon, as she was closing the shop, she found him waiting outside. "I thought billionaires did not hang out in places like this," she joked, unaware how close to the truth she was. "Maybe they should," he replied. "It is quieter here, real." They walked together through the park as evening painted the sky pink and gold. She told him about her mother working 2 jobs, about the small apartment she shared with a roommate, about how every tip counted. He listened not as a businessman, but as a man learning what mattered. "You make it sound simple," he said quietly. "It is simple," she replied. "Money helps, but kindness builds everything else." When she looked up at him, her eyes caught the last light of sunset, and something inside him shifted. For once, Ethan Ward, the man with everything, did not want to fix, buy, or prove anything. He just wanted to stay in that moment, beside a girl who had no idea she had already changed his world. As she waved goodbye, he realized he would rather sit in her tiny cafe, drinking bad coffee, than attend every meeting in his empire. And for the first time in years, he felt something he could not schedule hope. The following week brought a strange rhythm to Ethan's life, one that no assistant could plan and no agenda could contain. Every morning before the stock market opened, he would stop by the small coffee shop on Maple Street where Lily worked. Sometimes he brought fresh pastries from a nearby bakery. Other times he came empty-handed, just to hear her laugh. The staff had started calling him the mystery regular, though Lily insisted he was just a friend. The truth was, she did not know what to call him. He was kind but guarded, gentle but distant, like a man carrying too many invisible weights. One morning she found him sitting alone at a corner table, sketchbook in hand. "You draw?" she asked, surprised. He turned the notebook toward her. Inside was a rough sketch of her cafe dream from memory. "I tried to remember what you showed me," he said with a shy smile. "I am not very good." She laughed softly, touched. "It is perfect. Even the crooked window," he grinned. "That is my favorite part." As days passed, their friendship deepened. He began to help her close the shop at night, wiping tables, fixing the leaky faucet behind the counter. Customers started to notice how they looked at each other like something unspoken hung in the air, but neither dared to name it. One evening, as a storm rolled in, Lily found Ethan waiting outside under the awning, his shirt damp from the drizzle. "You should not walk here in the rain," she scolded lightly. "You will get sick." "I wanted to make sure you got home safe," he said simply. Her heart fluttered at his sincerity. They shared one umbrella on the walk to her apartment, the city lights shimmering on wet pavement. When they reached her door, she hesitated, wanting to thank him but unsure how. "Ethan," she said softly, "you are too good to be true." He smiled, though something flickered behind his eyes in ache, a truth he still could not share. "Maybe you just have not met enough good people," he replied. She wanted to believe that. That night, as she watched him disappear into the rain, she realized she was falling for a man she knew almost nothing about. Meanwhile, Ethan returned to his penthouse, the lights of the city below feeling colder than ever. He opened his phone, dozens of unread messages waiting from board members and partners. He ignored them all. His thoughts stayed with Lily, the warmth of her hand brushing his in the rain, her voice saying his name. For the first time in years, he felt human again. The next day, Lily arrived at the cafe early. A small envelope lay on the counter with her name on it. Inside was a sketch, a beautifully detailed drawing of her dream cafe, now complete with lights, plants, and a small sign that read Luna's. At the bottom, a note, "For the girl who reminded me what real dreams look like." Her heart raced. She looked around, expecting him to be there, but he was not. Hours passed, but he never showed. Later that evening, while scrolling through the cafe's tiny television, a news segment caught her attention. On the screen was Ethan Ward, standing on a stage in a black suit, microphones flashing. The headline read, "Ward Tech CEO announces global initiative for small businesses." Lily froze, the cup in her hand trembling. CEO. The man she had spent the last few weeks with was not just some quiet guy from the neighborhood, he was one of the most powerful men in the city. The same Ethan who helped her sweep the floor and fix a faucet was the billionaire on every magazine cover. She turned off the TV, her chest tight. Every laugh, every moment, they all suddenly felt like part of a lie. And yet, when she thought of his eyes in the rain, it did not feel fake. It felt real. She sat in the empty cafe long after closing, staring at the sketch he had given her. Her dream cafe drawn by the man who could buy an empire, yet chose to sit with her under flickering lights. For the first time, she wondered what it meant to truly know someone and whether she had the courage to face him again. That night, Lily barely slept. The rain outside her window seemed louder than usual, every drop echoing her confusion. She kept replaying their moments together, the laughter, the quiet talks, the way Ethan had looked at her like she mattered. But now, knowing who he really was, everything felt like a cruel joke. She wanted to be angry, but mostly, she felt small, like a side character in someone else's story. The next morning, she went to work early, hoping the rhythm of brewing coffee would drown out her thoughts. Yet each time the bell above the door chimed, her heart jumped, expecting him. He never came. By afternoon, her coworkers whispered about the news, unaware of her connection. "Can you believe he is the youngest billionaire in the state?" one said. "Imagine meeting someone like that." Lily smiled faintly and kept wiping the counter. Inside, her chest tightened. Around sunset, just as she was closing, the bell rang. She turned, half expecting a customer, but there he was, Ethan, standing by the door in a dark coat, looking nothing like the man she had known in jeans and rolled sleeves. For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of the rain filled the silence between them. "You knew?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "I should have told you. I wanted to. But for once, I wanted someone to see me, not my name." Her eyes glistened. "You could have trusted me." "I know," he said, voice low. "But every time I tried, I was afraid it would change everything." She crossed her arms, fighting tears. And it did. It changed everything. He stepped closer, his expression pained. "Lily, nothing about us was fake. I meant every word, every moment." She shook her head, her voice trembling. "You lied by omission, Ethan. You made me believe you were just normal. Someone like me." He exhaled, defeated. "I never wanted to make you feel small. I just wanted to feel real again." The honesty in his voice cracked something inside her, but she could not stay. "Maybe you should go back to your world, Ethan," she whispered. "Because this one, my world, it does not fit yours." She turned off the lights and walked past him, the faint scent of coffee and rain following her into the street. He watched her disappear into the night, his chest heavy. The next few days were hollow. Lily stopped looking at the news. She focused on her shifts, forcing herself to smile at customers. But her laughter never reached her eyes. She missed him, even when she tried to hate him. Across town, Ethan sat in his glass office, staring out at the skyline that once symbolized success. His assistant asked about meetings, investors, events, but none of it mattered. For the first time in his life, he had everything except peace. He thought of Lily's words. "You could have trusted me," and they echoed louder than any applause or headline. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan walked through the quiet streets near Maple Café. He stopped by the shop window, the same one where he first saw her laughing behind the counter. Inside, lights were off, chairs stacked, her sketchbook still on the shelf. He pressed his palm against the glass and whispered, "I am sorry." The reflection staring back at him was not the billionaire everyone admired, but a man who had lost the only person who saw him without a title. Lily, meanwhile, sat at home with her sketchbook open to the drawing he had made. His handwriting at the bottom, "For the girl who reminded me what real dreams look like," was now smudged with tears. She closed the book gently, whispering to herself, maybe it was never meant to last. Yet deep down, beneath the ache, something softer stirred hope, faint but alive. Because despite everything, she knew what they had was real. And sometimes, real things find their way back. Days passed into weeks, and winter began to fade into early spring. The coffee shop on Maple Street bloomed again with the smell of roasted beans and laughter. But for Lily, everything still felt a little quieter. She moved like a ghost through her routines, pouring drinks, wiping tables, smiling when she had to. Life went on, but something in her had dimmed. One afternoon, while taking a break by the window, she saw a little boy stop outside, pressing his nose against the glass to look at the pastries. Lily stepped outside, offering him a free cookie. His mother hurried up to apologize, but the woman's tired eyes softened when she saw Lily's kindness. "You remind me of someone I used to know," Lily said with a faint smile. The woman laughed, thanked her, and walked away, leaving Lily standing there with a strange ache in her chest. That night, she opened her sketchbook again for the first time in weeks. She started drawing a small cafe with open doors, fairy lights, and people smiling inside. Beneath it, she wrote one word: someday. Across town, Ethan had buried himself in work. But the more he tried to forget, the more he remembered. He attended meetings, made speeches, and smiled for cameras, but none of it reached his heart. Every night, when the city went quiet, he would find himself scrolling through old photos of Maple Street, the tiny cafe where he had felt human again. One evening, while reviewing proposals for a new philanthropic project, something caught his eye: a small grant application from an unknown applicant. Maple Heart Café, a community space for artists and dreamers. His breath caught. The handwriting was unmistakable. Lily's. He read every word. Her proposal described a place where people could create, share, and find comfort, a home for those chasing second chances. At the end, she had written, "I want to build something that reminds people to be kind, because kindness saved me once." Ethan leaned back in his chair, heart pounding. She had not given up. She was still dreaming. Without thinking, he picked up the phone. "I want this project funded," he told his team, "but keep my name off it." The next morning, Lily received an email. Her proposal had been approved: full funding, immediate start. She stared at the screen in disbelief. "Is this real?" she whispered. Her coworker hugged her, and for the first time in months, she laughed until she cried. That night, she worked late, drawing designs for her cafe. She wanted it to feel warm, safe, and real, everything Ethan had once said he was searching for. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the city, Ethan stood outside her old coffee shop, watching from a distance. He could have gone in, could have told her the truth, but he did not. This was her moment, her dream, and maybe his role now was simply to make sure she could have it. Weeks later, construction began on Maple Heart Café. Lily visited the site every day, watching her dream take shape brick by brick. One evening, as she stood alone in the half-finished space, the foreman approached her with a curious look. "Miss Evans," he said, handing her an envelope, "someone asked me to give you this when the windows went up." She opened it. Inside was a sketch her cafe, exactly as she had drawn it months ago, but now completed with lights and people inside. At the bottom, in familiar handwriting, it read, "Dreams are better when shared." Her hands trembled as she held the paper to her chest. She knew it was him. No signature, no name, just truth. Outside, the city lights flickered like stars. For the first time, Lily smiled, not because she had moved on, but because she finally understood. What they had was not a mistake. It was the beginning of something real, something still unfolding, like a promise waiting for its final chapter. Months later, the grand opening of Maple Heart Café finally arrived. The once empty space on the corner of Maple and Fifth was now alive with music, laughter, and the scent of fresh pastries. Fairy lights twinkled from the ceiling, and hand-painted signs hung proudly by the entrance, each one carrying a message about kindness and dreams. Lily stood behind the counter, her hands trembling as she poured the first cup of coffee. Her cafe, her dream. The applause from friends, customers, and local artists filled the air, but her eyes kept glancing toward the door, half expecting him to walk in. He did not. Still, she smiled, whispering to herself, Thank you, wherever you are. Across town, Ethan watched the live coverage on his phone from his office window. The sight of her smiling, surrounded by people, filled him with both pride and longing. His assistant knocked gently on the door. "Sir, the car is ready for your flight to Geneva." Ethan closed his phone, hesitated, then said softly, "Cancel it." Hours later, as the cafe's first day came to a close, Lily stepped outside into the cool night air. The city hummed quietly around her, and she finally allowed herself to breathe. Just then, a familiar voice broke the silence. "I heard the coffee here is decent." Her heart skipped a beat. She turned slowly, and there he was, Ethan, standing by the door, hands in his coat pockets, a faint smile on his face. "You came," she whispered. "I would not have missed it," he said, stepping closer. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the distance of months melting away. "I should be angry," she said softly. "You disappeared again." He nodded. "I did, because I did not want you to think this dream was charity. You built this, Lily. You earned it." Her eyes filled with tears. "You helped me." "No," he said gently. "You helped me. You reminded me what matters." The streetlight cast a warm glow over them as she studied his face, the same kind eyes, the same quiet sincerity. "Why now?" she asked. "Because I could not stay away any longer," he said. "I kept waiting for the right time to come back, but I realized there never is one. Sometimes you just have to show up." Lily let out a shaky laugh, wiping her eyes. "You are late, Ethan." "Then let me start over," he said, reaching into his pocket. He handed her a folded piece of paper. She opened it slowly. It was another sketch, this time of Maple Heart Café, but with two figures standing at the counter. Above them were the words, "Partnership Agreement." She looked up at him, speechless. "A partnership?" He nodded. "Not business. Life. You and me. If you will have me." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she smiled through her tears. "You are ridiculous. So is love," he replied. She laughed, a sound he had missed for months. Then she reached for his hand. "Come in," she said. "You still owe me a coffee." Inside, the cafe was quiet now, the last candle flickering near the window. They sat together, sipping coffee in comfortable silence, as if no time had passed at all. "You know," Lily said softly, "when I first met you, I thought you were just another lost customer sitting at the wrong table." Ethan smiled. "Maybe I was, but sitting at the wrong table led me to the right person." Her eyes softened. "To mistakes that were meant to happen." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "To the best one I ever made." Outside, the city lights glowed against the night, and somewhere between laughter and silence, two people who had been lost in their own worlds finally found their way home to each other, and to something that felt real at last. In the weeks that followed, life settled into something beautifully ordinary. Maple Heart Café became the heartbeat of the neighborhood, and Lily and Ethan worked side by side almost every day. He still wore his tailored suits, but now they came with rolled sleeves and coffee stains. She teased him for being terrible at steaming milk, and he countered by saying she was too generous with sugar. For the first time, laughter replaced the distance between them. Yet underneath the light-hearted moments, both of them felt a quiet fear. Happiness had never felt so fragile. One afternoon, while Ethan was helping restock supplies, a man in a sharp gray suit walked in. Lily recognized the logo on his briefcase immediately. It was from Ward Tech. "Mr. Ward," the man said briskly, ignoring Lily's confused expression, "the board has been waiting for you. You have missed 3 major meetings. Investors are growing anxious." The air in the cafe froze. Ethan's calm expression wavered for the first time. "This is not the place," he said firmly, glancing at Lily. But the man continued, lowering his voice just enough for her to hear. "Sir, if you keep disappearing for this cafe, you are risking everything you built." Lily's heart sank. So this was the other world. He belonged to the one full of power, pressure, and expectations. The man left, but his words lingered like a storm cloud. Ethan turned to her, his jaw tight. "I am sorry about that," he said quietly. "I thought they would respect my boundaries." She forced a smile, but her voice trembled. "It is fine. It is just a reminder." "Of what?" "That this," she gestured around the cafe, "might not be your forever." He stepped closer. "Lily, you are my forever." But she looked away. You have a company, a legacy, people who depend on you. I cannot be the reason you lose that. You are not, he said firmly. You are the reason I finally know what matters. Her eyes met his, filled with emotion and doubt. Then prove it, she whispered. That night, Ethan returned to his office for the first time in weeks. The boardroom was cold and silent, filled with men and women staring at him like he was a ghost. They demanded answers why he had ignored his duties, why he had risked the company's stability. He listened quietly, then stood. Because I forgot what this company was supposed to mean, he said. We build technology for connection, yet I lost all mine. That ends today. Some of the executives exchanged uneasy glances, but Ethan continued. WarTech will run without me for a while. I am stepping back to live the life I have been building, not just earning. Gasps filled the room. He signed the papers, leaving them speechless. Then he walked out, the city lights reflecting on his face. When he returned to Maple Heart Café that night, Lily was closing up. She looked up, startled, as he dropped a set of keys on the counter. What is this? She asked. He smiled. Freedom. Mine and ours. I made my choice. She stared at him, tears welling in her eyes. You really did it? He nodded. For you. For us. She ran into his arms, the weight of months finally lifting. Outside, the city moved as it always did, but inside the small cafe, time stood still. For the first time, both of them were free, no titles, no lies, no walls. Just two people who chose each other against the odds, ready to build a future they could finally call their own. Weeks passed after Ethan's decision, and for the first time in years, his days were quiet. No meetings, no headlines, no deadlines chasing him at dawn. Instead, his mornings began with the smell of fresh coffee and Lily's laughter echoing through the cafe. Together they worked side by side, building something real, one cup, one smile, one small act of kindness at a time. Customers adored them. To most, they were simply a couple running a local coffee shop, and that was exactly how Ethan wanted it. But peace never comes without whispers. One morning, a news crew showed up outside Maple Heart Café. A journalist recognized him and wanted to know why a billionaire had traded boardrooms for coffee counters. Ethan refused interviews, but the story spread anyway. Within days, people flooded in not just for the drinks, but to see the man who had walked away from everything. Some called it inspiring, others called it foolish. Lily worried that the attention would undo the quiet life they had built, but Ethan just smiled. Let them talk, he said. They are finally seeing that success is not about skyscrapers, it is about heart. That weekend, the cafe hosted a small community event, an art show for local creators. The walls were lined with sketches, including Lily's earliest drawings from her old notebook. As she walked through the crowd, she overheard an older woman say, "This place feels alive, like it was built with love." Lily turned to find Ethan watching her from across the room, pride shining in his eyes. When the lights dimmed and the last guests left, he pulled her aside. "Do you remember that night you told me about your dream cafe?" he asked. "Every detail," she said, smiling softly. He reached into his pocket and handed her a small velvet box. Her breath caught as she opened it. Inside was a simple silver ring engraved with a tiny coffee cup and the word always. "Lily Evans," he said, his voice steady but full of emotion, "you changed everything I thought I knew about love, about purpose, about myself. You gave me back my life. Now I want to spend it with you." Her eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "Are you sure you want a life this simple?" He smiled. "It is not simple. It is honest. And that is all I have ever wanted." She nodded, laughing through her tears. "Then yes," she said. 1,000 times yes." The lights of the cafe flickered softly above them as he slid the ring onto her finger. For everyone else, it was just another quiet night on Maple Street. But for Lily and Ethan, it was the beginning of forever, the moment love and truth finally stood side by side, exactly where they were always meant to be. A year later, Maple Heart Café stood brighter than ever. Sunlight streamed through the wide glass windows, casting golden light over the tables where people laughed, worked, and dreamed. On the wall hung a framed sketch, the very first drawing of the cafe that Lily had shown Ethan on their mistaken first date. Underneath it, a small brass plate read, "The best mistake we ever made." That morning, Ethan poured 2 cups of coffee while Lily arranged a vase of wildflowers on the counter. Their wedding bands glinted under the morning light. They did not live in a mansion or travel in private jets. Instead, they walked to work hand in hand, greeting neighbors who waved from across the street. For them, happiness had become something simple and quiet, brewing kindness one cup at a time. A soft breeze carried in the sound of a street musician playing a familiar tune, and Lily leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked softly. "The meetings? The spotlight? All of it?" Ethan smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Not for a second, because I finally found something real." She looked around their cafe, people, smiling, friends meeting, stories being shared and whispered, "Me too." Outside, a young couple took a picture beneath the sign, laughing as they walked away. Life kept moving, just as it always did. But inside Maple Heart Café, time seemed to slow, a reminder that sometimes the wrong table, the wrong turn, or the wrong moment can lead you exactly where you are meant to be. As the bell above the door chimed and new customers stepped in, Ethan wrapped an arm around Lily and smiled. "Ready for another day?" She nodded. "Always." And just like that, the story that began with a mistake ended with everything that mattered: love, truth, and the courage to choose a simpler kind of forever.